Marc Marquez expresses his apprehension towards Enea Bastianini, who has been vocal about the Japanese MotoGP. Alex Marquez criticizes the stewards for the long lap penalty in Australia following a collision with Joan Mir at the Japanese MotoGP. Let's discuss and watch until the end. Alex Marquez once again found himself on the unfortunate end of a MotoGP race weekend during the Japanese Grand Prix at Motegi. Just as had happened the previous week in Indonesia, his Sunday race came to an early end. However, this time, the stewards led by Freddie Spencer ruled that Marquez was at fault for the incident that took him out of contention. The trouble started early in the race when Marquez, riding for Gresini Racing, made an error at the notoriously tricky turn 11. He went wide, losing his line, and in his attempt to regain control and return to his racing trajectory, he collided with Joan Mir. The collision created dramatic visuals with Marquez hitting the asphalt hard and Mir's Honda RC 213.5 becoming entangled with Marquez's Ducati Desmosedici, dragging the bikes together for a brief but chaotic moment. Following the incident, the race stewards conducted an investigation and decided to impose a long lap penalty on Alex Marquez for the next major race in the championship, the Australian Grand Prix, set to take place at Phillip Island on October 20th. This decision did not sit well with Marquez, who was required to visit race direction to give his account of what transpired on the track. Despite making his case to the officials, Marquez chose to skip the post-race media session, leaving his perspective to be communicated via a press release from his Gresini team later in the day. In the press statement, Marquez accepted responsibility for the mistake but expressed his dissatisfaction with the penalty. "I made a mistake at turn 11, which caused me to go off my line. As I tried to correct and get back into position, I ended up colliding with Joan Mir, which caused both of us to crash. Our bikes got stuck together briefly, and I apologized to him for what happened. Now our focus is on recovering and being ready for the next race in Australia," Marquez said. However, it was clear that the two-time MotoGP race winner felt the penalty was unjust. "We have to take the long lap penalty, even though I don't agree with it. Just last week at Mandalika, another rider hit me in a similar way at turn 3, and no penalty was given. It seems like the rules aren't being applied evenly to everyone, but that's the way it is. We'll take this as a learning moment and move on," Marquez added. Marquez's frustration stemmed from a prior incident at the Indonesian Grand Prix a week earlier, where a multi-rider crash involving Jack Miller, Alex Espargaro, Luca Marini and himself had taken place. In that case, Miller lost control and collided with several riders, including Marquez, but the race stewards deemed the crash unavoidable and no penalty was issued. Marquez clearly felt that the two situations were comparable and questioned the inconsistency in the stewarding decisions. On the other side, Joan Mir was visibly upset and made no effort to hide his frustration with Marquez after the race. The 2020 MotoGP World Champion, who currently rides for Repsol Honda, was vocal in his criticism, believing Marquez had acted recklessly. At turn 11, Alex went wide, and by turn 12 he came from behind and hit me without thinking, almost like a missile. "You can't ride like that. You have to think more when you're on a motorcycle. There's no sense in ruining another rider's race," Mir said in his post-race interview. "Honestly, I'm more upset about the result than the fact that I could have been seriously hurt. It's frustrating." At the time of his interview, Mir was still waiting for an official decision from race direction about the incident. "I'm just waiting for race direction to make a call, but they're probably sleeping or eating right now. I'm also waiting for an apology. It's not the first time I've had something like this happen with him, and it's really frustrating." The collision between the two Spaniards added another chapter to what has been a turbulent season for both riders. Marquez, who moved to Ducati's satellite team Gresini this year, has struggled with consistency, while Mir's first season with Repsol Honda has been marred by injuries and disappointing results. As the MotoGP season heads into its final stages, all eyes will be on Phillip Island to see how Marquez responds to the long lap penalty and whether the stewards' decisions continue to spark debate among riders and fans. Both Marquez and Mir will be looking to put this incident behind them as they prepare for the next round in Australia, though the shadow of their clash will undoubtedly linger in the paddock. Marc Marquez recently revealed that he felt scared by the growing threat Enea Bastianini posed during the Japanese MotoGP race, a battle that left Marquez with a hard-fought podium finish. Marquez's calm strategy was briefly disrupted on lap 14 when a small mistake at turn 1 allowed Bastianini to inch closer. However, Marquez recovered quickly and managed to maintain a half-second advantage by the race's end, securing third place on the podium. It was a boring race, but tactical, Marquez admitted in his post-race interview. Once I was in third, Jorge Martin and Francesco Bagnaia had already opened up a gap. I tried to close it, but when I pushed harder into the braking zones, I made a mistake in turn one. After the error, Marquez changed his strategy to focus on defending against Bastianini, who he recognized as a real threat. I was a little afraid of Bastianini's last lap. He's known for posting fast lap times, but we managed to control him well, Marquez continued. He emphasized that while he had pushed hard throughout the race, his rear tire had deteriorated quickly, forcing him to take greater risks on the front tire to maintain his pace. Even like this, I saw him closing the gap, and yeah, it was a bit scary. The situation felt out of control, but I felt good on the bike overall. The weekend also saw Marquez focusing on a key weakness, qualifying. After suffering from 3 consecutive Q2 crashes between the San Marino and Indonesian GPs, Marquez had targeted improving his qualifying performance. He seemed to have achieved this in Motegi when he took provisional pole on Saturday, but a track limits violation cancelled his next lap, preventing him from securing a stronger starting position. When you start from the front, everything changes, Marquez noted. I started 9th, and while I did okay on the first lap, it wasn't perfect. Jorge overtook me in turn 10 and I lost momentum. Then Jack Miller passed me, which cost me time. Qualifying is critical for us. It looked like we had improved in this race, but we were unlucky. On to the next one. As a long-time observer of MotoGP, this race offers a glimpse into the complexities Marc Marquez faces as he continues to grapple with an uncompetitive bike and the ever-increasing talent pool in the Premier class. His fear of Bastianini's challenge highlights how much the competition has evolved. Years ago, a rider of Marquez's caliber might not have felt threatened in a similar situation, but MotoGP in 2024 is a very different beast. While Marquez's tactical racecraft remains sharp, his struggle to regain dominance in an era where younger riders like Martin, Bagnaia and Acosta are pushing the limits cannot be ignored. His comments about qualifying are also revealing. Starting further back in the grid means fighting through traffic, and even a rider of his talent risks losing precious seconds at the start. In modern MotoGP, where the margins between victory and a podium finish are razor-thin, qualifying can make or break a race. The fact that Marquez referred to the race as boring also tells us something important. He knows he's no longer in the title hunt and is left defending his position rather than attacking for victory. For a rider who once dominated the sport, this defensive style must feel unfamiliar. The tactical approach, while effective, doesn't play to Marquez's strengths as a rider known for his aggressive, fearless style. In conclusion, while Marquez remains one of the most formidable riders on the grid, the challenges he faces, both from rising stars and from the limitations of his current machinery, are reshaping his career. His ability to manage these battles and continue to secure podiums speaks to his experience, but the question remains, can Marquez return to his winning ways, or has the sport evolved beyond even his incredible talent? Hey MotoGP fans, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with all the latest action.